Meeting to order. We already did a roll call earlier, but we're going to go ahead and do that again. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin?
Here.
Counselor Merriday?
Here.
Counselor Stennett?
Here.
Mayor Soulsby?
Here. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Items to be added to the agenda. We do have, we'll do that after. Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify whether they're a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with the council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of the citizen comments. All right. Donald Norden.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, fellow citizens. I'm Donald Norden. I live at 239 Adams Avenue in Ward 1. I also have property over on Chestnut and Elm Street, which would be, well, that's the Ward 1 property. The Ward 3 property is Adams. I'm here today because, well, I was just listening to the radio this morning and Mike Sauermeyer and the chief were on, and there was some discussion about what's going on in the community and their roles. And that kind of made me think, well, maybe now is the time to come forward and do this. Back in April, Ruth Linus and I organized a South Lane transportation roundtable. And from that, we came up with one ask, and that was to ask the ODOT, the Area 2 representative, Vidal Francis, was attending on Zoom at that time, to change the specification or the scheduling for ODOT's work plan for a transportation hub in Cottage Grove from Tier 3 to Tier 2. I don't know, folks may, I mean, of course, the council and staff understand these things, but Tier 3 means like, well, yeah, maybe one day we'll do that kind of thing. Tier 2 means, yeah, we're going to do that. We just still have to find the funding and go through the things. Now, a little bit of history back in 2016 or so, I think South Lane Wheeler, I think Ruth had gotten a student to do a feasibility study for the area for a transportation hub over along the bike route on 12th Street, you know, essentially where the homeless camp had been. And then from that discussion, from the presentation from the student, then it's my understanding anyhow that the council had applied for a grant for a feasibility study, and I think that the history on that is not clear to me, but I believe the council was behind that, and there was an application for a grant, but it hadn't been received, and then COVID came and staff changes and all of that. So I thought, well, hey, maybe now, since this community is going through, we're going to have a whole different array of folks up here as counselors very soon. And then we have this area that's kind of cleaned out for once. It's sort of like, okay, here's our stance. Just look at this now. place that we're all familiar with, over by where the 12th Street homeless camp, that area, not necessarily that particular spot. I mean, it'll be found. I guess I'm running out of time. So I guess what I want to do is just have that ask that the council direct the staff to reapply for a grant for a feasibility study for that particular property. And guess that's the ask. So I would hope that you could proceed on that. And then of course we'll have more discussion later if the community wants to get engaged.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Kenneth Eady.
Hello, my name is Ken Hyde. I'm Ward 3. And I'm here because it is time to address the unaddressed. Here to challenge you, Cottage Grove. Be an example for all of Oregon. To address the unaddressed with a plan that doesn't involve removing a portion of your community. I mean, how can you look at yourselves in the mirror and be discriminatory against any group of your community? This doesn't really sound all American city to me. So I guess I'm asking you guys to stop the dust to dawn. You're just making people's lives so much more tumultuous. They don't sleep well. They're being harassed. Stop picking on the homeless like they're some scourge. I'm ready to sit at the table if it takes that, so that we can make some answers happen. That's all I got.
Thank you. Donnie B.
Hi, I just wanted to speak on the homeless camp issue as well. I stayed at the Douglas camp until they closed it down, and I have a job. You know, I work every day, so it's not feasible for me to set up my tent at night, take it down in the morning, not have nowhere to have my stuff at while I'm at work. You know, I mean, then it's just free for all for everyone. You know, and then not only that, but when it rains, what are we gonna do during the day during the rain? Where are we gonna put our stuff? It's just gonna get tore up and soaked up and ruined. You know. I mean, I don't know what to do about it. I mean, I just hope we can figure something out about this, you know, because it's not really working well for my job. It's not working well for me. It's not working well for our community. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. Feather Bousted.
Hi, Cottage Grove resident outside the city limits. Honorable Mayor, Council, while I did not play a direct part in the recent recall of 3 councilors, I very much supported the process that it took to accomplish. I see 2 really positive outcomes from it. One, there has been a significant increase in awareness in how decisions are made in our city. There is a multifaceted benefit when individuals start taking personal responsibility to know what is going on in our community and to get involved as opposed to outsourcing to others. Clearly, the more involvement there is in any decision, the more buy-in, the greater the success will be, even around the difficult issues such as budget prioritizing and homelessness. Secondly, I think we may have dodged a bullet to become a regional hub in St. Vincent de Paul's plans for Cottage Grove. I never heard that in the full Saturday presentation they made. I have to say I heard many good things about the way they do things at their facility. I really like the people involved too, but maybe we want to deal with our own homeless population with our own plans. The issue of homelessness was an issue that concentrated so much heat on the councilors that voted consistently for Cottage Grove to take the course laid out by League of Oregon Cities, one that our city move into the social service arena. In reaction to this 9th Circuit Court ruling, our former city manager had an endless supply of our parks given over to homeless camps, and it was passed by a majority of the then council. We've been through a few years of trying camps and the Highway 99 site, hoping to see some real help for people. But unfortunately, we realized little to no success with no metrics for success either. The other unfortunate outcome here has been the recall of people who genuinely wanted to help, wanted to see good things for Cottage Grove and signed up to selflessly serve us. Thank you, Mike, Chalice, and Alex. I believe you wanted to help people. In fact, I'm confident all of us want to help people who are dealing with mental illness and/or crushing poverty. Drugs too, we all want it out of our community. The dispute has been over the right way to help. I'm glad the camps have been disbanded, even though it was tough for some people, and I hear what's going on. I didn't like what they had become, and I did not feel good at all about the role I was indirectly playing in hosting places that I could see were attracting trouble and supporting misery. I will not take on any shame for the pivot to a new direction. I think all help is relational. I'm longing to see us creating spaces here where whole person healing can happen. I'm looking forward to seeing us pivot our attention to increasing wealth, up spiraling. The true wealth of any community is the people who are committed to it, its culture, as well as economic growth. I'm happy we're moving in that direction, and I want to see Candace serve as mayor for another 2 years.
Thank you. Dale Gangle.
Good evening, Dale Gangle, I think it's Ward 1. I'm a little bit confused. Hopefully somebody can straighten me out here. Last session, Dana Meriday pulls out a bag of gravel, sets it up there, wanting to raise our taxes. Then he turns around later on and he's voting to give these landlords and stuff that don't even live in our city property tax breaks. What do we get out of it? More low-income people. We don't need more. We got enough here. Help the ones we got here. We got kids graduating high school. You want to give somebody a property tax break? Let's keep our kids here, give them an incentive to go to school. We got elderlies that are losing their homes. People have lost their jobs right here in town. Take care of our citizens first, not somebody else's citizens. What's wrong with that? I mean, is there something wrong with that? You tell us to pay more taxes and then you give the rich people a tax break. I'm sorry, but I disagree with that. Whoever wrote that up needs to be questioned on it. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have signed up. Public hearings. Oh, I'm sorry, would you like to comment?
Yes, I would like to, could I still have my gravel. And I will speak further about the gravel later on in concerns of council. I'm not certain which tax break I'm giving to rich people.
Go ahead, Councilor Meredith.
So I can only guess maybe the low income property tax exemption that would allow a nonprofit to set up housing that it would be truly affordable for members of our community, which you described, the people that are elderly, the people that are low income that cannot afford the current rates. Another citizen last week spoke about the very thing I believe you're describing, that corporations are investing in real estate and the mom and pop real landlords have been driven out of the market, and corporations are investing in real estate for profit. So the tool of the low-income property tax exemption is to provide additional housing for the very class of people that need it the most. There's a 2 to 3 year waiting period in the few residences that we have that provide truly affordable homes for people. So with that, thank you for all of the public comments and coming out to see your government in action and to provide guidance to your council. Thank you.
Would any of the other counselors like to speak? No? Okay, thank you. Public hearing. These proceedings are being recorded. I will now open the public hearing at 7:40 PM. This public hearing will be held for the purpose of taking comments on declaring surplus real property, map TL dot 20-03-32-44-00800. We'll now have the staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, Council. The city of Cottage Grove owns a 1.71 acre parcel, also known as Lot 13 of the Cottage Grove Industrial Park. This property, currently listed through Campbell Commercial Real Estate, was the subject of an offer received on July 5th, 2024 from Malk LLC to purchase that piece of property. Following several rounds of negotiation with the potential buyer, the city and Malk LLC agreed to the city's asking price of $2 a square foot, or $154,202 even. While the subject property was always intended to be sold for industrial development, it is appropriate for the council to solicit input from the public via public hearing prior to declaring the property surplus, hence this public hearing. Upon completion of the public hearing, the council will consider a resolution declaring the property surplus and authorizing the city manager to sign the necessary documents to complete the sale of the property to Malk LLC. Notice of the public hearing was advertised, and I apologize, in the memo here it says Cottage Grove Sentinel, but it was actually the Register Guard on September 16th, 2024. It is recommended by staff that the council hold the public hearing.
We'll now take public testimony for any person, for all persons testifying. Please state your name and address for the record. Anyone want to testify? I see none. Are there any questions from the council? No? I'll now close the public hearing at 7:42 PM. Consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimous. All right. Resolutions and ordinances. Item A. Resolution declaring surplus real property and authorization for sale to Malk LLC. Acting Community Development Director, Eric Monken.
Thank you again, Mayor. The council has held a public hearing to solicit public comment regarding designating Lot 13 in the Cottage Grove Industrial Park as surplus and to accept the offer made by Malk LLC in the amount of $154,202. There were no comments received during the public hearing. It is now appropriate for the council to consider the attached draft resolution declaring the property surplus and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents to complete the transaction. Notice of as stated earlier, notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Register Guard on September 16th, and the public hearing held tonight, September 23rd, 2024. It is recommended that the council by resolution declare the property known as Lot 13 in the Cottage Grove Industrial Park as surplus and authorize the city manager to sign the relevant documents in support of the property sale to Malk LLC for $154,202 even.
Counselor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Move a resolution number.
Resolution number 2153.
Thank you. I would move that the council adopt resolution 2153, declaring the property known as Lot 13 in the Cottage Grove Industrial Park surplus and authorizing the city manager to sign the relevant documents in support of the sale, property sale to Malk LLC.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Counselor Urban?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that staff put in over a long period of time to make this happen. And also appreciation that we are moving towards the sale of all the open lots in the industrial park, a long time in coming. And just want to share that appreciation and glad to be here at this point and glad to have a sale.
We have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Stennett,
Aye.
Counselor Merity,
Aye.
Counselor Urban,
Aye.
Mayor Solsby.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Business from the City Council. Council Subcommittee appointment for Urban Forestry Committee interviews. Mr. Monk?
Thank you again, Mayor. I believe this is probably it for me tonight, hopefully. Recently, Riley Newman of the Urban Forestry Committee submitted her resignation from that committee. Her term is set to expire on December 31st, 2026. It is now appropriate for the council to establish a two-member subcommittee to hold interviews for potential applicants to that position. The vacancy has been posted in the paper and social media and on the city's website. The associate planner will contact the subcommittee that's selected or volunteers for service upon receipt of applications. I'm not aware of any applications being received at this time.
Okay. Anyone like to be on that? I would do it if no one else. Two, just two. Do you guys want to, or? Okay. Counselor Urban, Counselor Merity. Thank you. Item B, designation of voting delegate for League of Oregon Cities Annual Business Meeting. Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. As has been the council's tradition, is my understanding, you need to appoint someone to represent the city at the, as a voting delegate at the LOC's conference of business meeting.
Counselor Urban?
Do we know who all is going to be in attendance at this time?
I will be in attendance. Am I the only one?
I'd nominate Mayor Soulsby to be the delegate.
Okay. I will do it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Concerns of council. Counselor Urban?
Gonna note real quick, do we need a chair for that meeting in the Urban Forestry Committee?
Oh, yes. I would like to chair.
Nominate Councilor Mary Day.
I'll make sure to note that.
Okay, thanks. And then I'll just get mine out of the way real quick. My concerns of council, concern is the availability of citizens and board members of both the school district and the city here to be able to be better in tune with what's going on in both of those spheres. To that end, I've requested some time to meet up with the superintendent to get to better know the school district. And I do hope that at some point, maybe we can align our meetings so that they're not on the same nights, so that if citizens want to attend both, they'd be able to do that. But we'll see where that goes, and hopeful that if we can build a bridge, better bridges and between the two spheres of cultural influence really in the city, that the residents will have benefited in the long run. Thanks.
Counselor Mary Day.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to address a few of the concerns that were expressed by the public. A transportation hub would be very beneficial to our community. I do believe Mr. Ida stated being willing to come to the table. I think the more people we have at the table, the better our solutions will be. I appreciate Ms. Bausted's expression of, again, the willingness that we have in the community to solve our problems. I think the more that we can discuss and work together, the better the chance we do have of coming to a solution we can all live with and that we can actually see real benefits come out of. And again, as promised, I brought a bag of gravel, but that's not what that's not what I hope that the gravel is last resort. It is an option we did discuss in the ad hoc citizen council roads and finance committee. I do again want to emphasize how much your fellow citizens participated and helped guide this process. We had a roads contractor on board. We had Mr. Holloman that's present in the community here in this room. We had 7 other citizen members of the committee. It wasn't just the council. The council, we're used to sitting in meetings, but I want to honor the work that the citizens did on this committee. It was over the course of 10 meetings that we looked at data from our current streets, what their state of pavement index conditions are. We looked at every funding option that we could conceive of. We took every idea that came forward. The ones that we eventually proposed are the ones that we felt were the least painful and the ones most likely that the citizens may be willing to support. If you want your roads to improve, we are going to require some additional funding. The world does not sit still. Our ad valorem taxes increase by 3% per annum. Every year, your assessed value, which I may point out is far below the market value of your real estate, is by law held to increase 3%. The costs that surround us in the world, as you well know, as a consumer, as a taxpayer, as a person going to Safeway, have gone through the roof. That includes road building supplies, aggregate, gravel, asphalt particularly, contracting services. All of those have not increased at 3% per year. They've increased much greater than that. So I want to honor the work of the citizens that really sweated and worked over a course of 10 meetings or so at least, and really put in 2 hours every time or more. And it was quite, I mean, again, we did not take this task lightly. And the reason why we did this was to answer your concerns about the conditions of our roads. Everyone hates our roads, the condition of our roads. Furthermore, the condition is only going to deteriorate the less input we put into our roads. There's been criticism of the slurry and chip seals. That's only a Band-Aid, yes, but it's a Band-Aid that can last up to 10 or 15 years and preserve the state of the road without making it deteriorate further, plus smooth out the ride. I think anyone that's been on the stretch of East Main since the chip seal will agree that the conditions have improved, maybe not to your satisfaction, but they have improved. So the question boils down to, you want to repair a short section of road well or a larger section? There are 2 measures put forward, an increase in the gas tax and a bond issue. So both of those would provide needed funding. Both of those come with the provision that the road funds will be monitored by a citizen committee to ensure you as taxpayers that the money is spent specifically what they're raised for. So on Monday, the 30th, there will be 2 citizen members of the committee, and myself and the mayor will be on KNND to present again the rationale and the understanding behind these measures, and ask that you please consider supporting them if you want to truly improve your roads. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to echo how hard the Road Ad Hoc Committee worked on all these possible different solutions that will be presented to the voters in the end. And we encourage you all to look really seriously at the different things that are being proposed to help bring our roads up to more drivable state for our city. I wanted to share with you that I was fortunate to meet with Will Lathrop this morning, and he is a gentleman that's running for Attorney General of Oregon. And in that meeting, it was for public safety and protection of children. It was a lot about the human trafficking problems that we have going on all along our I-5 corridor, and some possible solutions of ways that we can help our law enforcement, what we would expect from state level, and how to move forward with some innovative ideas that have not necessarily been tried before in our state. We were joined with Sheriff Harold, Commissioner Seneca was there, Commissioner Lavelle, also a Family for Every Child was there. We also had the executive director of CASA, and they all shared some heartbreaking stories of what's happening in our area and how understaffed that department of Lane County really is. And we all know in policing, but also just the amount of detectives that we have working in our state, for instance, on internet stalkers. And I believe he said that the numbers are well, first of all, there's 70 kids on critical needs wait lists, and those numbers never seem to improve. And Idaho, which is smaller than Oregon, it has 21 investigators for their internet predator investigators. And the state of Oregon only has 5. And so that puts it into perspective how different we are, and how we need to make some of those critical changes if we want to protect our children. And I look forward to some collaboration with them in the future. Councilor Stennett?
Thank you. As I had hinted on Friday, I am announcing this evening my resignation from my post, from my position, effective October 1st. It is next Tuesday. I'm in the process of moving to Eugene. My work is there. My daughters both go to school there. My partner's there. Life has been pulling me in that direction, and I'm answering the call of that momentum. I've been in Cottage Grove almost 20 years. I came here to be the editor of the Sentinel. First a community reporter, I should say, and then the editor of the Sentinel, kind of doing what was described to me as a book report on this community once a week for about 10 years. I love this place more than I thought it was possible to love a place. It feels like family. It feels like a body part. It's not easy to move and leave that behind, and take a step into the unknown, as it were. That said, it's become increasingly easy and quickly quite necessary to envision, to stop coming here, frankly, in this room, and do what this process has become. I've had a lot of folks, not a lot, because I haven't shared my plans with very many people, that the ones that do urge me to stay in there and keep fighting. And I'm not equipped to fight. I'm not a fighter. This never had to be a fight. I've covered city council for many years, and Cottage Grove did not, there were fierce disagreements at times over key issues, and we never got this personal and this dark about things. It's been an incredibly difficult 4 years. I can't believe in the summer of 2020 that I was considering stepping into the arena at such a volatile time. There were a lot of circumstances we couldn't control back then. The COVID pandemic was isolating us, fires literally raging all around us, a lot of circumstances we couldn't control. But I think, those things that happen to us are important, but the way we respond generally, I find, is at least as important. And I think it just seemed to me that Cottage Grove came out of the COVID pandemic ready to fight. And it's not been the same. We took on what many may feel is the central issue of our time, issues with the unhoused. And I was so hopeful that Cottage Grove could do something truly innovative and compassionate, as Cottage Grove tends to do. Instead, it seemed that we blamed 3 people and decided that once we saved our town from them, we could show the homeless what we really thought of them. And I think that's not a good look for a compassionate, caring community like I know Cottage Grove is, despite the image that we're projecting to ourselves and to the rest of anyone who dares to, who's watching. To me, the recall signaled that we're done giving each other the benefit of the doubt, assuming that each of us has the best interests of our community at heart. We decided we were against 3 people. We sent the message that if we do not agree with the way you vote, we will blame you personally, and we will vilify you to your neighbors, to your community, and to the world at large, and you will be removed. If we don't agree with you, we will use a process meant to protect the citizenry from gross misconduct in response to a difference of opinion. This is a clear signal that solutions and unity are out the window, and it's something that I can't in good conscience be part of. I appreciated the mayor's plea for candidates to run clean, respectful campaigns at our last meeting. I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly, and I hope it comes to pass, but I wish it had come a few months sooner, when Mike Fleck was getting death threats and when we decided that 3 people were responsible for all of this. That said, I think Cottage Grove's going to be just fine, because I'm heartened, even despite the gloom lately, that despite the growing and inherent danger, and I do not use that word lightly, of serving in this volunteer position, that we still have people willing to step up and seek solutions in the best interest of the town, their neighbors, their families, and the people that they love, and the people they may not love, and the people they may not know. If they live next to you, they're your neighbors. There are people in this town who, no matter what brand of grandstanding is going on in this room, will show up, raise their hand, volunteer, and do the work. Make no mistake, the future belongs to those who show up, raise their hands, volunteer, and do the work. I know without reservation that 2 such people are Dana Merriday and Jim Settlemeyer. You can do with that information what you will. I would like to thank everyone who's shown up to provide their opinion, their insight, and their perspective, who's shown off on behalf of a town that we all love, who's given me a chance to live here, to raise a family here. I love Cottage Grove, and it's been my honor to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So with that,
Well, in light of that, I'd like to move that an item be added to the agenda tonight regarding an appointment to fill, to discuss the situation.
Agenda item we need to discuss.
Indeed.
all right. Councilor Merriday.
Would it benefit, can I address the city attorney? Would it benefit a brief explanation of the quorum issues that would?
So,
Yes.
yeah, sure. And thank you, Counselor Stennett, for allowing us the opportunity to examine the issue in advance a little bit. There are several ways that the council could proceed. What we have learned is that a counselor is moving out of town, so ceasing to reside in Cottage Grove. In response to a counselor ceasing to reside in Cottage Grove, the council has the opportunity to declare a vacancy, to accept the resignation, declare a vacancy, and then fill the vacancy. This council can only act with 4 members, and therefore will not be able to hold public meetings, council meetings after tonight, unless either the vacancy isn't declared or the vacancy is declared and filled. And if I didn't say it, if I didn't make it very clear, 4 members constitutes a quorum, which is necessary for this council to meet. There is another wrinkle in the city charter, which is that appointees serve until the next general election. The next general election is November 5th, and therefore any individual appointed this evening arguably won't serve after November 5th. That's a very odd charter provision, but I'm cautioning all due care because I don't want this body to not have a quorum and be unable to meet from either after October 1st through the end of the year or after November 5th through the end of the year.
But you could make a motion to fill that position until November 5th and then
I do
Do
have a
an
motion
addendum.
prepared, but I don't want to jump the gun
Mhm.
and wanted this body to be able to discuss various options, and you can direct me to read a motion into the record.
So it's my understanding that there's a motion to have an item added to the agenda on the table. Has no second, but it would need to be passed unanimously to add this to tonight's discussion.
Thank you so much.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right.
And I believe we're adding this item right now to this time right now. So given the background, you have a motion prepared that could be read, and we can either sign on to it and sponsor it, so to speak. And
Would you like me to
as
do that?
per
I have
discussed.
2 really. And one just ends midway and then the second continues after that. So I'll tell you where the first one could end and then I'll continue. So it would be, I make a motion to accept Councillor Stennett's resignation and declare a council vacancy in the Ward 2 seat and appoint blank to serve in that seat effective October 1st to November 5th. So that's motion A. And then motion B would be all of that with the addition, so October 1st to November 5th, and to resume serving after the general election until the successor qualifies and assumes the office.
I would be more in favor of continuing it so that we don't have that vacant time where we may not have quorum. That's agreeable.
I am in favor of that motion, the second motion.
Are those 2 separate motions or one continues?
Yes, I just didn't want to repeat myself, but I can if I was just trying to designate them. There's motion A ends November 5th.
So motion
There's
B
motion B
contains fully
contains
A
all of
plus
A
B.
plus
Okay,
B,
good.
yes.
That was confusing to me. So,
It is confusing, I'm sorry.
all right.
In light of this as well, we do have a candidate that is running for Ward 2 unopposed. And so in lieu of a possible amount of write-ins, he would get that position. And so I would like to make the motion that we appoint Randall Lammerman to that position.
Per motion B,
Per motion B.
second.
Counselor Merity? Absolutely. I talked to him before the meeting and he said he was willing to step up. Okay. All right. Counselor Stennett?
I believe it's the case that we haven't considered appointing people to the newly vacated seats because we were letting the people decide via the election. I would be much more comfortable appointing someone until the people decide at the election than appointing for a continued term. I think appointing for the remainder of the term would kind of go beyond, would be me reaching beyond this station and this situation at this time. I don't intend to support someone for the remainder of the term.
Counselor Urban?
On that point, do we have the ability to, if somebody else does win that seat for however that might happen, do we have the ability to make a modification so that the person that wins that seat carries on the term? Is that a way to craft that? So we're appointing now so we don't run into a situation where if the people's will is contrary to what we're doing tonight, that we would have to go through.
The only options that you have are either to fill the vacancy and then the charter takes over. And the charter says you could fill the vacancy and then they serve until the general election. There's a different type of term, a counselor pro tem, that is used when a counselor is temporarily unavailable and out of town. But the problem is that so I guess the short answer is no. If you decide that you are filling the vacancy and you're trying to do it by motion tonight through the end of the term, Ward 2 term, the council wouldn't be able to take that back. That counselor could step down, the appointee could step down and say, I wasn't elected and I would rather not serve. But it gets complicated because you would need to have filled the other seats before you lost that fourth member. Otherwise, you won't have a quorum.
And there would be one meeting between that November and the end of the year. Is that
That's
correct?
what I understand from staff.
Thank you.
Mr. Lammerman?
If it would make the decision a little bit easier on all of you, I would right now volunteer to commit that if something were to change come November 5th, I would volunteer to step down. No ifs, ands, or buts. It is what it is. If it helps.
Counselor Stennett?
Can I ask Mr. Lammerman a question while he's? Thank you for stepping up and for volunteering. I seem to recall you being a rather vocal proponent of the recall. Is that accurate?
I was not for or against it.
Okay.
I'm for the people having the right to do such thing, but I did not support it, and I didn't vocally come out against it either.
Okay. My apologies for having an incorrect recollection of that. Thank you.
No, you're good.
So we can go to a vote?
What can you remind me exactly what we're voting on, please?
Let me reread the motion into the record. So I make a motion to accept Counselor Stennett's resignation and declare a council vacancy in the Ward 2 seat and appoint Randall Lammerman to serve in that seat effective October 1st to November 5th, and to resume serving after the general election until the successor qualifies and assumes the office. That would be the council motion. What the appointee chooses to do after November 5th, we've heard, but this body wouldn't be able to do anything about that.
I could support the appointment till the election. I'm not willing to go beyond that. Just so folks know.
All right. We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Business from the city manager.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. In the interest of time, I just have one item, and that is that about a week and a half ago, we had our first city leadership team retreat. And some of the details of what we discussed are we established goals, priorities, and values for our leadership team. We put together a charter for ourselves as a body, and we also talked about our work agreements and how we plan to work together going forward. And I can certainly provide council at a later date with some more details on that. We're planning to have our second leadership retreat in late March and hoping to do this twice a year going forward. So with that, be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sauerwein. Anybody have questions? Councilor Meredith.
Could you describe briefly who was part of the leadership team?
Sure. We had our public works director, our city recorder, our police chief, our finance and our finance director. And can I see? Yeah. All I can ever see of Eric is the top of his head, but due to Eric deciding to take another position, he wasn't included in the discussion. And also
Mr. Stewart.
We also had our human resource manager.
And our human resources director was there as well. So.
Thank you. Report from the city attorney.
Thank you. Other than working behind the scenes on several things that are keeping me busy, we're working to present the bond and gas tax issues to the voters in a neutral manner, and just trying to provide some education around those measures. And then I'm just going to cede my time. I know that you have a work session coming up, and I will be leaving. I'm not going to be here for the work session. I don't think there's a need for me to be here. But if you have questions for me now, I'm here. And if any come up during that work session, you can always direct them to the city manager.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, items removed from the consent agenda. I see none. Now we'll go ahead and go on into our work session, public safety discussion. Chief of Police, Mr. Chase.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So tonight, in this work session format, what we were hoping to do was just kind of start a conversation about public safety, what that looks like currently in Cottage Grove, and start to have a discussion about what that looks like moving forward and into the future. So with that, I kind of have a few topics that I want to put out there, and then I'm hoping that this can just kind of generate some conversation amongst the council, myself, Mr. Sauerwein, and the staff. So in this setting, the ability to do this is something that we don't always get to sit down in the room unless we hold these work sessions in view of the public. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to have this discussion. And so I kind of want to just talk about, give kind of a status update. And I know a couple of weeks ago, I gave a presentation about staffing and kind of went into detail on that. That is still one of the biggest hurdles to us getting where we want to be, but we're making significant progress there. So, but what I want to do is just kind of talk about a little bit when, when I came here a year ago, and September 11th was my 1 year anniversary on the job. So I've been here a year. What it looked like when I got here, what were some of the major obstacles, and some of the things that were going well that we built on. So one of the biggest things for me coming in here was wanting to obviously address the issues with staff, and being in that unique situation where there was significant turnover all at once. So we're trying to address and really dig out of a hole, so to speak, right from the get-go, but also to start to build strong relationships with our community partners, working closer with our law enforcement partners in the region, local police, sheriff, OSP, federal agencies, the district attorney's office, all of those things. And I know, Mayor, you spoke a little bit about on a state level, what's going on with human trafficking and internet crimes against children and all that kind of stuff. So it was really trying to bring some relationships that I had already built over the course of my career in this state, and then also, making introductions to some of the folks in specifically in our region who I hadn't met before, had the opportunity to work with. So over the course of the year, I've done a lot of that work. I've met with our community partners. I've taken site visits to different facilities in our region, even in Douglas and Lynn counties. But I've met with the chief in Lebanon. I've toured their facility. I've had several meetings with Junction City, Springfield, Lane County Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office, the DEA, and the FBI out of Eugene. Gone down and met with my counterpart in Roseburg. And so really just kind of putting it out there, that we're open to collaboration, we're open to building these relationships. And then in the hopes of, when the time comes, to be able to leverage those resources and have those partnerships already in place. We've had to do that several times in the year that I've been here. And so that work has already paid off for us, by being able to have support from our community partners when we've had some major incidents that, just because of the nature of our staffing, would have quickly overwhelmed all of our resources. And even at full staffing, when you're talking about small and medium-sized departments, very few of them are able to just kind of stand alone and work completely on their own without the assistance of their neighbors and without their partners. It's just, there's, like I said, very few agencies in the state that could probably do that and really not have any support from the outside. So that was something that was really important to me. And I think we've done a good job with that. We've also had the task of going through our policies and procedures, looking at the potential of working towards accreditation, trying to become an accredited police agency. There were a lot of things that we needed to tackle first, and before we could really dive into the nuts and bolts of accreditation. We've done some significant things. One of the biggest obstacles that we had was our property and evidence room, making sure that we had a full and complete audit and that we were, basically meeting industry best practices, having a really good tracking system and software system in place. All of those things are nearly complete. The systems are in place, the processes are there. We're in the process right now of purging just stuff that we don't need to be in possession of anymore. So all of that stuff that we hold, we're responsible for. And so the longer we hold it, it's just more work for us to have to account for that and track it. So the idea is to get on a more regular schedule and try to manage what we're actually holding on to and tracking in our system. So our evidence technician and our administrative captain have been working really, really hard at getting us where we need to be. And that was a big piece of what we needed to tackle before we moved into accreditation. So we've done a lot of work with that. We brought on some other software programs to help us with our transparency. Some of the things that I talked about was being able to have a higher level of accountability and transparency when it comes to things like use of force incidents, reporting on that, how we're tracking it, some things that hadn't previously existed here with this agency. So we did invest in some software. We put some processes in place, some policy adjustments in place. So we are properly reviewing all use of force. We do have the body worn camera program that was put in place before I got here. We made some adjustments to that as well. So we even have a more wide use of that, including myself wearing one when I'm in the field. And so everybody that's in the uniform, anybody that goes out and contacts the public when we're out patrolling and potentially taking enforcement action, they will have the body worn cameras. So that's a component of reviewing all of those reports that we get as well, and talking about the different levels of use of force and what we're taking a look at and why. So all of that to say, none of that is easy. None of that is stuff that just kind of happens overnight. There's a lot of work that goes into doing that. And we've really been working on kind of laying a foundation to basically get us to a level where we are not just meeting industry best practices, but where we are kind of a shining example of what an agency our size can truly be, and to show people that, you know, we can accomplish these things in small communities and in small police departments. We can do things up to industry best practice and even beyond. So we're not where we want to be, and in my opinion, we never will. I always say there's no finish line. We're not working towards like, hey, we're done, and then we're all just going to kick our feet up and, you know, have a cup of coffee or whatever. We're always going to be looking to evolve and improve. So, but there's a number of things that that we have been able to accomplish in a fairly short period of time. One of the critical things that we were able to do back in June was finally get to a level of staffing where we could have a detective back in this police department. And the reason why that position was so critical for us is because of the workload and the time and expertise it takes to investigate crimes against children. So if you don't have properly trained people that can actually dedicate their time, it's not that we can't do it. It's just that we're not doing it to the best of our ability. And so for us to be able to identify that person, put them in that position, and then also start working with our partners at Kids First. We have some really significant training opportunities through that partnership that aren't going to cost us a lot of money. In some cases, we're getting training for free, and we're being able to expose that detective to some high level training, and also some significant incidents that are occurring around our region, because we're partnering with local law enforcement agencies, and they're offering to mentor and help you know, bring this detective along. So when they're getting called out to some major incidents, they're letting us know, you know, something happened somewhere outside of Cottage Grove, but if our detective is available, you know, she can go with them and investigate that. And the benefit to us is just having that exposure. So when something like that does happen here, we've got somebody that knows how to handle it and has, you know, been there to see it with seasoned veteran detectives. So sharing our resources around major crimes pays off exponentially. And we actually have used that several times here in our own city. So there's been a few incidents in the year that I've been here, most recently just a couple of weeks ago. And so having those connections in place and being able to have that detective, you know, where we need them trained and the experience and exposure to be able to do that is really important to us. So that's kind of an overview of some of what we've been doing. It's not a complete picture of what we've been doing, but it's a lot of the high level, really important things. And so I think what we need to do tonight is just kind of, you know, allow all of you to ask questions or discuss some of these things, ask me questions, solicit feedback, if you will. So hopefully that's the conversation starter for us tonight. So.
Well, before we get to questions, I want to express our gratitude from the city of Cottage Grove for overhauling our department and really making some of these necessary changes that are going to give more confidence to our citizens that our public safety is a top priority for our city. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any questions? Counselor Irvin.
Also want to share appreciation. Yeah, I'm encouraged by the direction that the department is in and going. From as long as I've lived in this area, I've known Cottage Grove to have a reputation of being a meth town. Just from younger than high school up. That comes along with a lot of ancillary issues. And I've often wondered, it seems so out in the open. I can look down my street and see it occurring. I can look, just a conversation last week. Well, there was a flop house there, and I often wonder why can this exist in the open so much? And I know there's a number of factors involved in it, but it sounds like things are changing to a degree. And one of my hopes, and one of the reasons why I seek to volunteer in this position, is I hope to change the reputation of this town away from that this is a safe place to raise a family, that there's opportunities, that this lurking risk of if they get in the wrong circles, they're likely to wind up addicted or less and less likely. I understand reality is reality. But we are in a unique position on I-5. Trafficking is a huge issue, shared my minimal experience. And so I know that's on your mind, but I just reiterate it. Those things are really important, I think, to a community to have accountability. And I know conversations are going to continue. I think the community is asking for accountability in increased measure. And so look forward to, as the department gets fully built out and understanding what their capacities are with the implementation. Was it the September 1st?
Yes.
Yeah. And beyond. So those I think have to be continually addressed to give the residents confidence for more and gains in those areas. I think even as we're talking about with the roads, of showing, hey, look what we can do with this amount. Now we'd be asking for this to get to this level. Love to hear all that we can hear about what's being done to increase public safety and really address generational issues here. And I know it's got to be empathetic and compassionate, understanding this, as we were talking about on Friday, I think, about what's going on. But I think you get my gist.
Chief, can you explain to us from a policing perspective, how the reform in Measure 110 has changed the job of policing drugs?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mayor. Thank you. And Councilor Irvin, I know you kind of touched on this a little bit as well with the drug enforcement. It's given us a tool that we haven't had. And I'll just, without getting on a soapbox, Measure 110 didn't work, which is why there was the push for reform. House Bill 4002 helped us get some of those tools back. We've already been arresting folks for possession of hard drugs again. There are some officers in our department that this is the first time they've arrested people for drug offenses. So going back to my career, and without getting too deep into my resume, I have a passion for investigations, and I have a passion for that work. I spent a portion of my early years in law enforcement doing what we called street crime investigations, drug dealing at the street level, and also working on a HIDTA task force, doing higher level drug trafficking investigations. So I have a significant background in that area, but I also know the resources that it takes to do that. And I would like us to get to a position where we can focus on that a little bit more. But I do think with where we are now, with the reforms that we saw with House Bill 4002, and what deflection is ultimately going to look like. I think it was a win for us that was not something that was drawn up at a state level and rolled out statewide. It's something that was voluntary, if you will. Not all counties are participating in it, but in Lane County, we opted to participate in this deflection program. But we were able to design it for what works for us here in Lane County. And in working with the group in putting that together, we all had a seat at the table. So it wasn't like it was something that Lane County put out that was just the county, or that it was, just the big departments, like just Eugene got a say or whatnot. We all had a seat at the table to talk about this, and we're all getting regular updates on what this is going to look like. But it does give us the ability to make those arrests, what they're classifying as a drug enforcement misdemeanor. So it's not a felony like it used to be, but there's more that goes into that. So if they're arrested on a drug enforcement misdemeanor and they are eligible to go into the deflection program, and for whatever reason they're not successful, then they go back for prosecution. And the result of that is 18 months of supervised probation. So it's not bench probation, it's supervised probation by a probation officer, which there's a huge difference when you have to have regular check-ins and you have a caseworker who's actually checking in on you, as opposed to just some, stipulations made, by the judge. The judge doesn't have the ability to do home visits and that type of stuff, right? So there's a difference there. So it is kind of a game changer for us. It looks different than it did 20 years ago, but it's a step in the right direction from where we were, for sure. And we've already been making those arrests, as have other agencies around the county. But we've already taken, people into custody, transported them to the county jail, booked them in for drug possession charges. So.
Thank you. Counselor Merriday.
I wanted to echo the change that's come through the department through your example and leadership. And I was very happy when you were our choice. Through the interview process, I was visibly impressed by your answer and your demeanor. I would like you to express our current level of staffing, and also the officers that are still in the probationary or training status, how that will flesh out the department.
Yeah. So Mayor, Councilor Merriday, where we stand right now is our budget for this fiscal year allows for us to have 12 full-time employees in what we call the police officer rank. So out of those 12 employees, we spread those out amongst the patrol officers, detectives, whatever other assignments we have. So currently where we are right now, we have 11 of those positions filled. We have one vacancy, and we have two candidates that we're in the process of vetting right now to try to fill that one position. But one of those positions we assigned to the detective role in June because we needed that position there. We have two officers right now who are in the field training and evaluation program who've already completed the police academy. So, and then we have one who's at the academy who's set to graduate not next Friday, but the Friday after. So in 2 weeks. So he's getting close to academy graduation. Will come back. And then the field training program is about 4 months. So we are inching closer. In the first line supervisor ranks, we've been without first line supervisors and sergeants as long as I've been here. So myself and the two captains have been, kind of filling that void which means it takes away from some of the administrative duties that I do as the chief, or that are my responsibility. And even, out working patrol shifts and trying to cover some of those spots on patrol. But we have two applicants that we're vetting right now for those sergeant positions. If everything is successful with this process, we'd like to get them on the first week of November. That's what we're shooting for. And I did talk to Mandy, our human resources manager, today, and that's kind of our goal, and that's a realistic goal. We have 2 vacancies in the dispatch center still, but we have a couple of candidates in the background for that. So we're optimistic that they'll make it through that process. And the dispatch positions have really kind of proven to be the most challenging for us, it seems. But it's also a national trend as well, that those positions are getting harder and harder to fill. So, but we're optimistic with this last round of interviews that we did. So, but right now we have available to patrol the streets. We have 7 officers to patrol the streets 24/7. So.
On the dispatch, so we're 2 vacant. How are those working dispatchers surviving that?
They're hanging on, but it's not ideal by any means, and so they're reaching a level of burnout, and it's challenging because it seems like we've come close a few times, but we've yet to really find any that are going to stick. We have a couple that we picked up that have been successful, but we've had a few that we brought on that didn't work out within the first month. We've had several that through the background vetting process haven't been successful. So we've been interviewing a lot of people. So we are optimistic, but you have 4 people to staff a dispatch console 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's not a lot of margin there. So if somebody wants a day off or somebody calls in sick, somebody else is getting called in on their day off, and somebody else is going to have to work overtime. And it's really tricky to be able to afford vacation time to those people, but it's important. Even in our patrol ranks right now, we have 1 officer who's on vacation, and he's been working a ton of hours and is very active when he's on duty. He's a very productive police officer, works super hard, and he deserved some time off. I mean, we're running our officers into the ground, and but it's important enough to me that, I mean, I came on last night, Sunday night. I checked on at 6 o'clock, and I checked off this morning at 2:30. So, but the reason I'm doing that is because we're in a position where I feel like we're ready to turn a corner, and it's important for me to step in and help bridge that gap to get us where we need to be. And for the overall health and well-being of our officers, it's important for us to still be able to give them time off. So.
Counselor Stennett.
Chief, can you talk about turning a corner, what that means and looks like? And I mean, we've had several updates of rather dire staffing levels, and it seems like there's a notion of fully staffed, and then there's the reality of where we're going to get, and it's maybe not ideal anytime in the future. So how do we turn the page and keep making progress?
Well, when we talk about, kind of turning the page, when I got here, we didn't even have people. We didn't really even have an applicant pool. So we had all of these vacancies. We were about 50% of what our staffing should look like. And we didn't have a lot of hope moving forward, and so where we are now is we have people, we've identified folks, we're getting them trained, we're getting them up to speed. And within 3 to 4 months, if things go as we think they are, we're going to be closer to being fully staffed than we have been in a long time. So when I say, we're turning a corner, I think that's where we are. But, eventually we're going to need to have a longer discussion about how we continue this. How do we maintain the level of service? How do we maintain the staffing that we currently have? And what services do we want to be able to deliver as a police department to the city of Cottage Grove? So with our expenditures rising, and, we've talked about this with everything else, right? The costs are going up. Our expenditures are going up, and our ability to generate revenue, the police department doesn't make money. We cost money. And, and we're an expense to the general fund. So it's challenging for us to continue to maintain what we have and to maintain our budget year after year when our expenditures are outpacing our revenues like they are. So.
Thanks. Do you have just early thoughts, spitballs on how to do that? Or?
So, yeah, Mayor, Councilor Stinnett, there's a number of different ways to do this. Mr. Sauerwein and I've talked about this. Ultimately, and I'll probably let Mike speak about this really. I mean, there's ways to do it, but it's not, it's really not my decision to do that. I think when you start talking about what the funding looks like and the revenue streams and things like that, there's ways to do it. And it's going to be a conversation that we'll have to have sooner rather than later. So.
Well, good evening again, Your Honor, members of the council. As we discussed earlier this summer, one of my personal goals, and that I expressed to the council, is to establish long-term, stable, and sustainable funding for our police department. And that certainly will be a major topic of discussion at a retreat we're planning for you early next year. That we really need to kind of grab this bull by the horns and wrestle with the issue of how we're going to be able to fund our police department in a stable way over the long term. So more to come. That's definitely a conversation we're going to have.
Well, as far as keeping retention of your police officers, I can say that changing our culture and raising that professional level, getting them the equipment and the training that they need, and being visible out on the streets like we are seeing them today is only going to prove to help, I believe, in retention, because it's giving your officers a place that they're proud to work at. And for that, I definitely have such appreciation for that.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would echo that. We talked about that this morning on the Beeper Show. And, one of the questions that was asked of a community member was, what are you doing, kind of your recruitment efforts? And for us, that's what we offer to people. And that's what we pride ourselves on, is one, the community that we serve. There's a lot to be said for being able to show up to work every day in this uniform, doing the job that we do, and know that when we're out there on the street, that we're serving a community that appreciates us, that treats us with respect, and really encourages us to go out and do the work that we need to get done. So that's a huge, selling point for us. And that's something that motivates us and keeps us going. And then internally, it's the culture that we're building, the staff that we're putting together, the team that we have, and what the culture that we're building, the camaraderie and the sense of purpose and belonging, and understanding who we are and why we're doing the job that we're doing. All of those things are super important for us, beyond some of those other things that we're not going to be able to offer that someplace like Eugene or Portland or Salem. Bigger cities may have some of those things, but I think what they miss are those things that I just talked about. And it's one of the reasons why I've chosen, to come here and be a part of this. And throughout my career, I've spent time working in communities where we are appreciated and where we can build that culture. So.
Councilor Merida.
I just wanted to encourage the public to, if you haven't already, subscribe on the weekly police updates that are, I think, very insightful about what the department's doing, and would really want to compliment the person behind those.
Anyone else? Have anything else?
Mayor, I don't have anything else. I just, like I said, I just wanted to kind of put this out there as a conversation starter. And I think that's what we're able to do tonight. Kind of paint a picture of where we were, where we're going, and then also understanding that there's going to be a much lengthier and important conversation about how we maintain our level of service. But, just understanding that we need to identify what that service looks like before we figure out what we need to fund and how we're going to do that. So I just wanted to offer that up tonight and kind of give an overview and hope, like I said, that this is a conversation starter for maybe even a series of conversations moving forward. So,
Thank you for your time.
yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate the time.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.